Up LinkedIn and Facebook and wherever you are watching this today. We just celebrated July 4th. Happy birthday, America. We're very excited on this Friday to have another amazing guest. Today I have Jack McKissen. Did I say that right?
Yes, McKissen. Yeah,
I should have asked
exactly
that.
as it looks.
My God, I didn't confirm. I always asked to make sure I didn't say the name wrong. Okay, today I have another amazing guest on, and I found him because we're top voices together, and I've been reaching out to all the amazing LinkedIn top voices. And let me tell you, there are some incredible people that have that blue badge, and Jack is one of those that I found. And today we're going to talk all about communication and how words matter for how you build your thought leadership strategy, how you show up as a leader in general with your teams, all the things. And so I'm really excited. If you're watching or watching the replay, totally fine. Definitely let us know where you're watching in from. Ask those questions. We will be looking at the chat throughout this and after to make sure that we answer any questions. So with that, Jack, what's up? Tell us, first things first, give us a little bit of the background around just who you are. Tell us the good, fun stuff, not just your resume.
Absolutely. So, I'm Jack McKissen. I live in Salt Lake City, Utah. This is where I grew up. I've moved around a lot. But yeah, I mean, just dive right into it. The Top Voice program and LinkedIn and kind of the role it's played for me and where it's kind of put me and pushed me. 10 years ago, I had the world, actually it's 10 years ago in 9 days. I published my first article on LinkedIn on, I think, July 14th, 2014. And at the time, I had the world's strangest job. I was the executive director of the National Christmas Tree Association, which translated means I was a Christmas tree lobbyist. It is a weird thing to be. I got to do a lot of cool things in that job, like bring a Christmas tree to the White House over over Thanksgiving 2013. And a quick story about that. I was there. I obviously never been to the White House before. They take us through the tour and we go to what's called the Blue Room to officially present a Christmas tree to the First Lady and her kids. And so they come down, they bring the family dog. Michelle Obama was the First Lady at the time. So they bring this down and they serve cookies to, everybody that's there. And the cookies are all shaped and look like the family dog, whose name was Bo. And at the time I had little kids and I was like, I don't know if I'm ever going to be here again. And so far I've never been there again. Sorry, hit my headphones there. But no, they brought out cookies and there were a couple of leftover cookies. And I was like, I got to bring these home to my kids, but I don't know if I can ask. So when I thought no one was looking, I put a couple of cookies into my bag that I was carrying. And Michelle Obama herself saw me do that, called it out, and then had them bring wrapped cookies to bring to my kids. So I got teased by her. But she was, politics aside, incredibly nice woman, incredibly kind person, and I got to bring home White House cookies to my kids. So that was
say like you were detained. They took you down for taking something.
No, I probably wouldn't be telling that story with a smile on my face, right? That would probably be a whole other, session.
A hell of a story, great story. Yeah. Amazing. Okay, that's amazing.
So I was doing that job and I got my grad degree online. I was a working father when I got my education. And so I had seen a lot of content at the time that was kind of disparaging towards that and basically said, if you didn't go to Harvard or Yale, don't waste your time with an online degree. I didn't feel like that was speaking to lots of people that are in different scenarios like I was. And so anyway, I wrote this article, a blog on LinkedIn that was more of just kind of a response to this. And LinkedIn had just debuted its blogging tool. The reason I chose LinkedIn is because I didn't want to build, my own blog. And I also knew the difference between, that sometimes it doesn't matter how great the writing is. You also have a mechanism to drive people there. So I threw up like 700 word, 800 word article on this. And I walked away and something literally in my head told me to go look because I didn't have any expectations for it. And I went back to my computer in our basement in our house at the time. And after 2 minutes, it had about 1,000 views. And I was like, okay, something weird is happening. So I literally stayed up all night because I published it late at night and I saw it gain viewers. And I didn't even have, I think I had like 502 connections, no followers. And what was really cool is I saw like the world turn with my article, meaning as the night progressed, there'd be like people from Pakistan, liking it. And you literally saw like the time zone shift as people woke up and got on LinkedIn. And I loved it. I loved everything about it. I loved being on a stage like that. I loved the idea that my ideas were, people were reading them and engaging them, and that response was overwhelmingly positive. So I just decided I wanted to keep doing this. And at the moment, I had no idea that it would become any part of my paying career. It was just something I really liked doing. I had originally gone to college to be a writer and ended up choosing a different major, so I was always kind of the designated staff writer in the different organizations I was at, even if that wasn't my position. It was like, if you need something written, give it to Jack. And but that was kind of the extent of it. And it just blew up. I kept publishing. It kept going viral. LinkedIn itself became very supportive. I'm a huge fan, not just of LinkedIn, the platform and what people can do with it, but LinkedIn, the people that work at LinkedIn have been extraordinary to me. And I really do love them. And I'm not saying that because we're on that platform. They know that I mean that. And so I kept doing that. About 6 months into it, I published an article that was about my dad's kind of stint of long-term unemployment. And I wasn't writing about the things I was doing as a job, or, I wasn't writing about marketing or about association management or lobbying. I was writing about stories that I cared about that had an intersection with the professional world. So this article about my dad's long-term stint of unemployment got 500,000 views. And what happened there was kind of two things at once. It branched me off into writing on another, a bunch of other platforms and that type of thing. And then the other thing that happened is someone who was on the board of a different nonprofit, and he worked at Citibank, and he had grown up in Russia, and his dad had a very long-term stint of unemployment. He just liked my style and liked my writing, and offered me $500 to create content for this event he was a part of coming up. And that was the first time I had ever earned any money like that. That was the first time it was something other than a paycheck, and it felt amazing. Like my paychecks were much larger than $500, but there's something different about that $500 that felt really special. And it just quickly snowballed from there. I had more people coming, and then I had something to sell. It's like, can you help us? And when you're an early entrepreneur, especially if you're not making a specific product, but you're a consultant or those types of things, the answer is always yes. I said yes to things I had no idea how to do. It's just really whatever you'll pay me to do, and that grew and grew, and it all grew from LinkedIn and that initial writing there. So yeah, love being here, love talking about that, and we can go into some specifics. But and then through that journey, that was going really well. COVID happened, some changes in our personal life, our family's life. I hit, to be honest, I mean, we'll do some radical authenticity here. The month before COVID, I billed out about $30,000 in a month for writing blogs. If anyone is listening to this who writes blogs for a living, they know that is an incredible amount of money to charge for that. The following month after COVID, it was $6,000. And, I had never anticipated, you build in some allowance, but not that type of drop. And I share that because I feel like a lot of people have that experience over the last few years in one form or another. And it's really hard to talk about. And it's especially on a platform like LinkedIn, where you're trying to always present yourself as a superstar. Like talking about the bumps in the road are very difficult when it's the platform where you're trying to get people to see and hire you because you're a star, whether you're an entrepreneur or an employee or that. Yeah, that was rough. I mean, that was a very traumatic experience, that alone, to say nothing of everything else that was going on for everyone else at the time. And again, LinkedIn stepped in for me again. They offered me a contract to write and edit the LinkedIn Sales Solutions blog for a year. That was able to, because of that, things stabilized. And then I was able to be in a point where I could start to rebuild and kind of take another direction after that. But it's like, and I don't mean this as an exaggeration, time and time again, it feels like LinkedIn is some sort of guardian angel. So I'm like, I'm the biggest fan, I've fully drank the Kool-Aid. But that's kind of been the last 10 years. And it's been a really exciting and crazy and sometimes scary time.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, a couple things I want to point out. One, that you turned your skill around communications and writing into something that you can actually monetize, right?
Yeah.
And actually, so when I talk about building your personal brand, I ask people, like, what are your skills, like actual hardcore skills? And so I want to point that out, that Jack leverages his skill. Like, he has a talent for this and has now made it into a career and something very successful that's drawing people in. Um, the other piece, I think also, Jack, like, you're saying LinkedIn, and yes, it's definitely LinkedIn is the vehicle, but you're showing up authentically.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
you're showing up.
Yeah.
You're showing up, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
You made the choice to say, hey, I have something to say, I'm just going to put it out there. Whether one person reads it or no people read it, I think I don't like what I'm feeling as a dad, and I'm getting my degree, and I want to share that because there might be somebody else that's feeling it too. And in that vulnerability, look at what is coming forward for you. And so I think that's really powerful, because so many people are scared to share their voice. And especially, like you said, on LinkedIn. But I think you're a really great example of when you relinquish those fears, that actually can create a lot of opportunity for you.
Absolutely. And I would say that was, I mean, from a technical point of view, I'm a good writer. I know that. I study writing. I get very geeked out about how I get inspired to actually, put the words on the paper. But the most well-written, thing that says nothing of importance or people don't relate to it is not going to go anywhere. It's not actually the technical skill that powers that. What powered my early view, my writing continues, is the things I'm willing to talk about. And, I've written articles, like I said, about my family's economic struggles growing up. I've written, stuff about the struggles I've had over the last few years that I just mentioned. I've written about, the challenges my wife and I had in our, early in our marriage when we were a one income family, and these things. And to your point there, even if you're talking about relatively niche experiences, for lack of a better word, because I was homeless as a young child, and then I was homeless as a young adult, and that was something that I would refer to kind of frequently as an experience that shaped me in my early writing. And just statistically, not a lot of people experience that, but a lot of people experience at some point in their life some really scary economic insecurity. And when you do that, when you talk about those things, one of the really notable things I've seen as like in my personal communication and the people I work with, or in my writing, when you talk about things that are hard, it creates this really cool reaction in other people. Like, if you say the worst thing that's ever happened to you or the worst experience, people's natural tendency is to reply with the same. And you'll hear things from someone you've just met that you're like, whoa, things about, their marriage or the family they grew up in or stuff like that. But you've instantly knocked down a whole bunch of barriers to have a real conversation. It's like, the worst about me, I know the worst about you. Talking about a business relationship or a contract or that type of thing, when that's the lead in, it becomes much, much easier because you're two real humans talking to each other. So I really like that you pointed that out, because if, one of the other kind of things I say about thought leadership is there's no thought leadership in Me Too. And I don't mean that as the political kind of movement or slogan. What I mean is, when I work with people and try and help them become thought leaders, or formally or informally, when I give that advice, it's like, often they're like, I've read this article, I've seen this video, I want to say something about that too. And it's like, being the second to say something, it becomes very hard to differentiate yourself. And the way to be the first to say something is to draw on your own personal experiences. It's like that basic writing advice you get in a creative writing class. The first thing they'll tell you is write what you know. And when it comes to thought leadership, it's that too. And you see some people are very comfortable with that, and I think they tend to be the ones that rise up into actually being thought leaders. And some people are like, no, I want to be a thought leader, but I don't want to share that. I don't want to talk about this. They immediately start kind of fencing off the things they're willing to talk about. And what you typically end up when you do that is you're talking about the same things everyone else is talking about. And there's just too much out there to break out like that. And it's just not going to happen unless you're really willing to share the things that that you've experienced. And what's really interesting is that when you do that, you think, I'm the only one who's ever done this, right? Or had this happen to them.
Mhm.
There are 8 billion people in the world. No matter how weird, strange, or traumatic your experience is, there's quite a lot of people who share it or relate to it in some form.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. It's such sound advice for people trying to create content, or even if it's not creating content, it's just resonating with your team,
Yeah.
and who you're working with, which people really need psychological safety amongst teams right now. That's a big topic, and I think as leaders, when we can share the moments where we're not actually leading so
Yeah.
beautifully, it really creates a sense of safety in amongst our teams.
Absolutely. And one example of what I was talking about that is highly relevant to me is in December, my wife got laid off from her job, and it was a mass layoff. The business was shrinking. It was like and it was regardless of what the unemployment numbers say, it's not a good time to hit the market and you're just I mean, when you see those, if you go on LinkedIn to apply for a job, it is really hard to find a job no matter what it is in, unless it's really unique or really location specific, that doesn't, within a couple minutes of posting, it goes to the over 100 applicants thing. And no matter how talented you are, if a company is receiving 1,000 resumes for a job, there's so many talented people, they just have to lop off the top, whether that's a manual process or AI driven from the beginning. So she was experiencing this, and I was like, well, why don't on LinkedIn, why don't you start to do a diary? We called it the diary of an unemployed woman, and not like talk about your job search, but like the weirdness and personal frustration that comes from being unemployed. It's like you wake up on a Tuesday and have nowhere to go, and no one talks about how hard that is psychologically.
Yeah.
From just posting about that on LinkedIn, her unemployment ended. That's where it wasn't applying for things. It was someone was reading those posts and not even interacting with them. They weren't liking it, they weren't commenting on it, and eventually they contacted her, and she ended up going to work for like I said, we live in Utah. She ended up going to work for a recruiting firm in England, actually based in England. The person was in England reading that and wanted to be her to be the one to kind of break open the US market. And the way she was talking about unemployment, they were like, you'll make a good recruiter. So that being really raw and talking about that, it created a real tangible opportunity for her.
Oh, wow. I love that story. I
Yeah.
love that story. Yeah. And I love what you said too. You basically said you don't know who's reading, right?
Yeah.
Just because like you might not be seeing the impressions or, engagement, people are seeing things. And if you're not present, opportunities are a lot less.
Absolutely, and that's something just in the way the world works now. You can't sit back and wait for it to come to you, because there's a million other people doing things that are out there and being visible. And then one of the other kind of stories of my early writing thing that I'm reminded of when you bring that up is, when I was first on LinkedIn, kind of, I think people feel a little bit about this, but one of the differently about this, but one of the things that would come up frequently back then was, do you accept connection requests from people you don't know? And, I mean, there's always exceptions when you may not want to, but in general, I have a completely open door policy, because I believe in life and in business, the opportunities you can't see coming are generally from people you don't know, right? Like I know, the 10 people I know really, really well, I know their world. I know, what they can do for me and what I can do for them. Everyone that I'm doing business with now or engaged with now, I didn't know them at all a couple of years ago. And one of the ways I learned this is when I started publishing writing, there would be this guy, and I don't remember his name, but and he's not really active on LinkedIn anymore, but he was in Pakistan, and he and I have very different parts of the world, very different professional experiences, very different personal experiences. But every time he would like or share one of my articles, I saw the views go up by like 300 or 400 views almost immediately. And he was really influential within his own network. And the way that helped me is it just helped that raw number. I mean, when I talk about how many people have viewed my articles or followed me on LinkedIn, that those raw numbers are impressive, and I use them. And it was someone that if I didn't connect with or mistrusted, or like, you're in Pakistan, I'm here, we're never going to do anything together, that wouldn't be the case. So it was, yeah, you never know who's reading. You never know someone else's network. And just because you look at them and say, well, this isn't someone that I would necessarily have an opportunity with, there might be literally thousands of people in their network you can work with. And so that was kind of, having that philosophy was really impactful early in my journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have that exact policy because I hear you on it. There's only 30,000 connections we can make. So at least I like to get a personalized invite.
Well, everybody has something different. And
I like when somebody makes an effort to at least say like, hey, saw your post, loved it, something for me. Then I at least know they're not that's for me,
No, and it's different for everybody. And I will say, not to go down this rabbit hole, it's much easier to have that policy as a man. And there's some different elements there. But I'll say that, like, if someone engages, it's always good to put a personal invite, especially if there's a specific reason you want to be in connection with someone. And shout that out. Don't leave it out there. When someone's like, if someone sees that connection and knows, they want to sell me something or want to, do that, that's fine. Just call it out. And
no, don't sell me immediately. See, I'm a no go on that, Jack.
See, I don't mean the hardcore sell. I mean,
Okay.
if someone is, I'll give an example. If someone connects with me and they are a copywriter or an SEO person or a video production person, I know why they're connecting with me. It's not a barrier there. I would rather have them call it out than, what's even worse than the instant call out to me is the pretend friendship, right? Like where it's like, we're buddy buddies, we can become buddy buddies, but for me, we're more likely to become buddy buddies if I know what you're here for. And also that allows me to know, I might not be the person you're targeting, but again, I might know somebody, and then it starts going like that. So, I agree with you in the sense of, and I'm talking about in the connection request, the calling it out in the connection request of what you do and why you want to connect. What is worse is when you don't do that, and then you immediately get the follow-up message of selling you something. And so, yeah, but I mean, lots of people have different approaches to it. This one has worked particularly well for me. So, yeah.
So, to shift just a little bit with our time still together, I'm curious, I know that you talk a bit about AI. You've built a career the last decade on writing, blogging. You have AI happening. You've contributed to some amazing publications. What is your stance on, or how should I say, not stance on AI by any means, but for those of us that are interested in being published, having our work published, and we're living in an age of lots of AI and not a lot of differentiation, where it's now just starting to get like really blah.
Yeah.
What's your approach, Jack, for those that are interested in getting their name out there, do want to be featured in other publications in the age of AI?
Yes. So a couple of things. One, on AI in general, and I know this could be a rabbit hole, so I won't go completely down it.
But keep our rabbit hole to 5 minutes.
Sounds good. So on AI, initially, I had one take on it, because as someone who's made so much of their career on writing and things like that, it was really obnoxious to get the kind of messages and dialogue about, essentially, you're going away, and what do you think about that? Well, what I think about going away tends to trigger a very specific response, as it would anyone. Walk into a welding shop and tell somebody a robot's going to do your job. What do you think about that? You're not going to get a thoughtful, even keel response to that. It's unfair almost to put someone in that position. So that fueled a lot of my early reaction. It's evolved over time since then, in that there's not an AI in the world that can do what I do. There's just not. You know, if you read AI writing, it's very good technically. I use it for things like contracts, proposals, stuff where you don't need a creative flair to it. It cannot be creative no matter what anyone says about that. And that's by the measurement of someone who considers themselves a creative. You know, it can't take this personal story and that personal story and that thing that's going on in society and weave a web between them. And I don't think it ever will. You read AI, I read speeches and things written by AI. They are technically very sound. They are totally without a position, meaning it is very hard for them. And that's how you can kind of recognize it immediately is this says nothing, but it says it really well. So I don't think it's going to replace that. And I think the dialogue around AI is really disingenuous on either end. It's not going to be the end of the world, but it is going to have dramatic impacts on people. The difference, you know, the analogy of like what happened to the typewriter workers when we got computers? Well, they went and worked at the computer factory. AI is in many cases designed to eliminate the need for human labor in general. So of course, it's going to have a big impact on that. So we need to really have a serious dialogue about that, about what do we do when there's just one day not as many jobs. You know, we really have, because what's not going to happen is people aren't going to roll over and say, oh, I was just caught in the wave. You know, people get really angry and that starts to impact our politics, our society. We really do need to have a more serious conversation about that. At the same time, I have a friend who has ALS. Over the weekend, I heard his voice again for the first time since I hadn't heard his voice since high school, because we reconnected once he got ALS. And that's a miracle. You know, I literally burst into tears when I heard his voice. And I recently wrote an article about a country music singer named Randy Travis, if anyone's familiar with Randy Travis, who had a stroke and couldn't sing or talk anymore, and they recreated his voice. And it's a beautiful song they released that was AI powered. So on that subject, I just think we need to have an honest dialogue in the middle that recognizes what it can do and what it's going to do with people, and find some space within that rather than go to the sort of two extremes. Regarding writing and getting into publications and things like that, my main advice would be to start with a platform you can control. So that was LinkedIn for me. I could just publish and publish and publish, and it gained an audience. But more important than just the audience, it also showed that I could do that, right? I can write a 700-word article that isn't selling my services at every turn, that is value added, that is different than maybe some of the other things you're reading. And then I could have stuff to share with editors. And then honestly, editors started coming to me. And that was the cool thing, is seeing how that compounds, right? Like once my writing went from LinkedIn to Inc. magazine, to bunches of other things that once I showed I could do it, editors want content, that type of thing. So my advice would be to, whether it's LinkedIn or something else, don't neglect the platforms you can control, because it gives you links and things to share. And you know, because the first thing an editor from a platform like Inc. will tell you is it needs to be 600 words, you can't sell yourself, and these couple of other parameters. And most people hear that and do directly the opposite. They'll write a 900-word article that's 3/4 sales and then wonder why they're not getting in this. And so I'd say the other thing is to humble yourself when you want to get in these. Read people who are getting published. Look at what they're doing. It's sometimes shocking to me when I work with people who want to get in those things, and it's like, you know, you have an opportunity. I've connected you to an editor, whether that was a professional thing or as a friend, I connected to you, and you clearly didn't even take the time to look, is this the type of article that's on that platform? And you have to, I think a lot of people broach this as, I have something to say and a way I want to say it, and you need to hear it. That's not how that works, right? You need to fit within their parameters. And once you can show editors that you can meet a deadline, you can deliver what they're asking for, even if it's not the most well-written article ever, they'll help you with that. What they need is something that they can plug in and kind of move on with. And that was I would say, outside of my writing ability, getting on those other publications, make friends with editors. And the way you make friends with editors is, once you've had that contact, or once you get that opportunity, make their job easy. If you make their job easy, they're going to come back to you for more. And then often you may not even have to pitch something again. Once they see you can do that, they'll come to you and say, you know, hey, we're looking for this. Can you do this? Or we have an opportunity, you know, can you do that? So that would be the biggest thing, is really, if you're starting out, put some stuff on some, you know, LinkedIn, Medium, these other platforms where you can control it. And then if you get the opportunity, make the editor's life easy, and you'll start to be able to express your thought leadership on those platforms.
Such good advice. You know, I feel like that's good advice for like if you're hiring, you know, you're interviewing for a job,
It is.
working with a client, you know, it's like somebody's hiring me, I'm going to try to solve their pain points, like make their life easier. And
Yeah.
to work for somebody, you're there to fill a need. So I think just it's a similar mindset, right? Like,
Absolutely.
yeah, no, I love that. Well, Jack, this has been such a fun conversation. I knew a little bit about you, but I am really excited that we're starting a friendship. Absolutely love your story. Love what you're doing. Please, if you haven't connected with Jack, looks like he's open to connecting, unlimited.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Up to 30,000. So if not, you know, follow him. I just kid. But is there anywhere else that you want them to check out or subscribe or anything?
No, I mean, LinkedIn has been the primary place for me. You know, I'm on some other platforms or things like that, but I tend to be most active on LinkedIn, and my stuff originates there. And what I really like, real quickly, about when people connect with me, I immediately look and see if there's some way I can deliver value to them, right? Like maybe maybe they're involved in something I've been involved in, or when you get to have a network my size, I can usually connect someone with something that's valuable to them. And that's the biggest thing that I think makes LinkedIn different, is you have an immediate way, if you're creative about it and thoughtful about it, to invest in other people. And when you invest in someone else, they want to invest in you. And to your point about not selling, that's the best way to sell on LinkedIn. If you connect with someone, if you're selling something, go to their profile. And we talked about this, and when I was on the sales solution team, you can find a way to do so. You can find like, oh, I know this person in this. Would you like to be connected, or something like that? It doesn't have to be an endorsement, which I know a lot of people feel awkward and should about someone they don't know. But there's a million ways you can make someone's day and life better on that platform. And if you do that, you're going to get value from that relationship.
100%. Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody, for checking out this month's interview. I have another amazing guest coming for the beginning of August. Cannot believe it. Have a great